Hi again then guys, and so we've got another Special Projects replica build for you today, and I have to say this is probably one of my favourite replicas that we're going to do so far. It's a replica of the ultra rare 1969 Chevy Camaro ZL1, which is basically the ultimate Camaro, built to be kind of a stock drag car, ready to be taken out by private teams or private drivers and turned into a drag racer. It was fitted with a 427 engine, which is massive for a Camaro, and it produced around, I believe, 430 horsepower out of the factory, but by removing a couple of restrictive factory parts, you could quite easily be putting out 500 horsepower, which back in the day made it one of the quickest cars in the world. Now, we have, of course, already a few weeks ago done a replica of the ZL1 Camaro, which is a very similar machine, similar engine, I believe the same engine, in fact. But this time we've gone for more of a traditional muscle car with the Camaro version of the ZL1 pack. And it's pretty much spot on as far as replicas go. There's very little visual difference between the ZL1 and the Camaros that are on the game. I've opted for the Camaro Z28, which is on the game, not the SS, because of course this is the premium car. Now, as far as the visuals, it's pretty simple, but I'll run through it anyway for you guys, and then we'll go over to the tuning garage for the most important thing, which is of course the mechanical setup, and then take it out to the track to see how it performs. Now, as far as the visual look of the car, as I said, it's a very simple one to get. You do have the option of these enlarged front chin splitters in effect. I've opted not to do that, but there's nothing to say that you can't if you want to. There is no flat floor, of course. The rear wing you want to leave stock, and so pretty much you've just left all the body stock with the option of the front end change if you want it. For the rims, we've gone for these classic smooth steel drum looking rims, which are very similar, if not exactly the same, to the ones on the actual ZL1. I haven't fitted any additional meters. Now, as far as the colour, obviously technically you can go for whatever colour you want, but I've gone for a metallic colour, which is called Nero Jarama, which comes from the Alfa Romeo Premium Spec 147. It's not necessarily the exact colour of a classic ZL1, but it looks very similar to pictures that you can find on the net. That slight greyish, almost graphite tinge to the black. And I've also gone for that exact same colour for the rims. And the classic ZL1 does have colour-coded rims as well. So, as I said, a pretty simple visual look overall. So now let's go over to the tuning garage for the mechanical setup. Now, I've chosen to replicate this car in its slightly aftermarket state, where you can remove some of those more restrictive factory parts. If you want it to be factory spec, as I said, you can look for around 435 horsepower, but I've gone for the easily attainable 500 horsepower. Now, I've gone for sports soft tyres because it's more of a street-based vehicle. I've left the brakes stock just to give it more of an authentic classic feel. For the suspension, we've got the ride height on 140 front and rear, because the ZL1 does sit pretty high. The springs we've increased slightly to 750 and 5. The dampers and anti-roll we've left on 3, again to give it that more classic soft muscle car feel. The camber we've got pretty low on 0.5 degree. Neutral toe, we'll come back to the gearbox in a second. For the diff, I've got the lowest initial torque, acceleration sensitivity of 50, and braking of 20. I've left the clutch and propeller shaft, or prop shaft, standard, again for that slightly more old school feel. As far as power, obviously I'm running the 500 horsepower. This one does have an oil change. I've gone for the Stage 3 engine tune, sports computer, sports cat, intake tuning, and the supercharger, which isn't technically accurate, but it's the only way that we can get it to be spot on. And we've reduced the power down to 97.6%. And as far as the weight, we've got the body coloured bonnet and window weight reduction, then given it a 98 kilo ballast to bring us up to the exact weight of the real ZL1, and we've put that 8% towards the front of the car just to make it a little bit more tail happy. Now finally, as far as the gearbox, basically you're running very similar to stock, but with a slightly more stretched final drive, if I remember correctly. But basically you want to take your auto setting all the way down to 112, then bring your final drive all the way up to, I believe it was 5500, if I remember correctly. I think I did a gearbox flip on this one. Then bring your auto setting up to 143. Then for the individual gears, and these are the exact gears of the real car, 2.2, 164, 127 and 1. You don't use fifth gear for this setup. And then we've reduced the final drive down to 3310, which again is the actual final drive of the 4-speed gearbox. So that's it for the mechanical setup overall on this Camaro ZL1 replica. Now let's finally take it out to the track to see how it performs. Now overall, of course, this is predominantly designed for fans of the classic Camaro, especially the ZL1 of course, and it's not designed really for competition. The PP, to be completely honest, is a little bit too high for it to be relevant on most tracks. So this really is more of a replica, which I personally love, which is just a replica for the joy of driving. It's not designed to win races, it's just designed to be as faithful a replica as you can build, really, of the classic Camaro ZL1. The main difference, of course, being that you don't have anywhere near the 427 engine capacity. But apart from that, I think it lives up to the car pretty well, both visually and performance-wise, and it's very fun to drive. So, if you decide to use this Camaro ZL1 replica, perhaps to go alongside your Corvette ZL1 replica, then I hope, of course, you find it fun and potentially competitive, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for racing. And if you're new to the channel and would like to keep up with other replicas and custom builds like this as soon as they're released, be sure to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.